gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find what you love and excel, yeah.
Outward folding, inward folding, tri-folds, giant foldables. These days, everything folds, but Huawei may have just taken foldables in a completely new direction. Welcome back! A few days ago, we got early hands-on time with the Huawei Pura X Max and covered the basics. If you missed that video, check it out first. Today, we're going deep. How does this new screen ratio actually feel in daily use, and what technology is hiding inside? Let's get into it. Big thanks to my tech partner over in China for providing this footage. I really appreciate the support in making this video happen. Hey everyone, Stella here from techiestreet. If you're into staying updated with the newest gadgets, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our latest tech content. First, my overall impression. Folded, it feels like a uniquely sized smartphone. Unfolded, it becomes something much closer to a tablet. In daily use, it genuinely feels like a large screen foldable. Now let's talk about the new form factor. Most large foldables are basically tall smartphones folded in half. Closed, they're easy to use with one hand, but once opened, the inner screen usually becomes almost square. The display gets bigger, yet content doesn't always feel dramatically better. The Pura X Max takes a different path. Open it up and the screen feels much more tablet-like. Compared to common ratios like 16:9, 4:3, and 3:2, Huawei's choice stands out immediately. The inner display uses a square root 2:1 ratio, and that's more important than it sounds. We looked closer at that ratio, and it's surprisingly precise. In theory, it's the perfect middle ground between 4:3 and 3:2. The math is actually simple. If you balance the black borders for both formats and solve the equation, the answer is square root 2. Pretty clever. So what does that mean? Simply put, square root 2:1 is an ideal compromise between two of the most common content formats. But here's the really interesting part. Fold this ratio in half along its long side and something unexpected happens. The shape keeps the exact same proportion. Sound familiar? That's because it's the same principle used in A4 paper. Fold an A4 sheet into A5, A6, or A7, and the ratio never changes. That's the idea behind Huawei's dual-sided expanded screen design. The first time you hear it, honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing. Of course, that's the theory. In reality, bezels, rounded corners, and internal hardware affect the final shape. Even so, the Pura X Max's outer display stays very close to the same ratio. It's slightly wider than the inner screen, but not by much. A smart design choice. Now let's look at gaming. If you compare popular games on this screen, the wider viewing area is obvious, especially at the top and bottom. Pair that with the 229-gram weight, and gaming feels surprisingly comfortable. As I mentioned earlier, this device feels more like an expanded folding tablet. Last year's PX Foldable felt closer to a compact folding tablet. The outer screen worked, but many apps really made more sense on the inside display. This time, both screens are fully usable. Because of that, it doesn't feel like a direct continuation of the old PX lineup. Instead, it feels more like a larger screen version of the Meta X7. Even the hardware and pricing point in that direction. So why not just call it a foldable tablet? The answer appears when you look at the desktop layout. On a true tablet, portrait and landscape modes make full use of the screen. But here, landscape still splits the interface into 2 pages, while portrait only shows 1 page. It's good, but not quite a full tablet experience yet. The system still follows the logic of traditional foldables. For example, productivity apps like WPS and East Money still need more optimization. That said, the experience is already very usable. Hopefully, Huawei keeps pushing this design further and unlock even more tablet-like functionality. Now let's move to software. For a brand new form factor, app adaptation is critical, and this is where HarmonyOS shines. One of its biggest advantages is its multi-platform framework, allowing developers to build once and adapt across different devices. The screen adaptation here is genuinely impressive. Take Bilibili. When folded, it uses the normal phone layout. Unfolded, it instantly switches to a tablet-style interface. We also tested several third-party apps, and many already adapt very well to HarmonyOS standards. Huawei didn't stop there. To make the large screen feel more immersive, many apps have replaced traditional bottom navigation bars with floating designs. It's a small change, but it makes the interface feel cleaner, more modern, and much better suited to a large display. Combined with the new visual effects in HarmonyOS 6, these floating navigation bars feel much cleaner. They take up less space and stay out of the way. In apps like Little Red Book and Little Green Book, the bar can even disappear while scrolling. The result? More screen space and a much more immersive experience. Now let's talk about one of the biggest upgrades we barely touched on during our first hands-on, the new Companion AI. Activated by double-tapping the small white bar at the bottom. On the home screen, it appears as a subtle rainbow white glow. Open an app and it transforms into a floating sidebar. Swipe from the corner and it expands instantly. Here's what makes it different. Most AI tools wait for you to ask. This one tries to help before you do. For example, if a friend messages you about meeting up, the AI can recognize it and remind you directly from the sidebar. It can even create a task automatically. Reading an article, it can suggest questions or generate a quick summary. In daily use, it's surprisingly useful. And there's more. If someone sends a screenshot with a table, the AI can instantly recommend extracting it with a single tap. It's a small feature, but incredibly practical. Huawei also designed it around one-handed use. However, there's one limitation. Unlike some apps, the Comfort Grip mode doesn't switch sides in real time. It only updates when the AI is activated. So if you open the AI with your left hand, the sidebar stays on the left. Switch to your right hand and you'll need to reopen it to move the interface. At first, that sounds inconvenient, but constantly shifting the UI could disrupt what you're reading. Huawei's choice actually makes a lot of sense. And because the outer display is 85mm wide, users with smaller hands may find the lower half difficult to reach. In that situation, the Companion AI almost works like a built-in one-handed mode. Moving to hardware, the phone supports the Huawei MP3 Mini and works with the official pen charging case. Huawei has also brought its innate drawing feature to smartphones for the first time. It supports live tracing, importing images, and even frame-by-frame animation creation. Inside Huawei Notes, there's also a new inspiration and creation feature. Even rough sketches can be turned into polished artwork with AI. For advanced users, there's a professional mode that feels similar to node-based workflows in Coffee UI with support up to 4K resolution. You can even remove AI watermark labels for free. So how many stars out of 5 would you give it? Huawei has also optimized the experience for the CapCut stylus. The old circular menu is gone, replaced by shortcuts for common editing tools like doodles and creative effects. Adding video animations becomes incredibly easy, and honestly, this device has some serious productivity potential. The side fingerprint button doesn't just unlock the phone. It's also designed for reading. Swipe up or down to turn pages, tap or long press for continuous scrolling. There's even a page turn animation that feels like flipping a real book. Combined with the large display, the experience is surprisingly close to reading a physical book. Overall, Huawei has handled this new aspect ratio extremely well. At first, we thought it might mainly appeal to older users or dads, but after testing it, the software adaptation exceeded our expectations. Now let's move to the cameras. One feature that immediately caught our attention is AI pose guidance. We briefly mentioned it in the unboxing, but it's worth a closer look. When taking portraits, the AI analyzes the scene and the subject, then recommends suitable poses. It even displays pose outlines on both screens at the same time, so the person being photographed can copy them instantly. That means far less communication between photographer and model. Naturally, we had to test it. In the exact same location, we compared a human photographer against the AI. Our friend took the first photo, the AI created the second. Which one do you prefer? Let us know in the comments. For beginners, this feature is especially valuable, and if you find a pose you like on social media, you can import it directly and use it later. There's also the new X-Mage Selfie feature. It automatically recommends poses and color styles based on the scene, combined with AI-assisted composition that adjusts framing and focal length. It almost feels like a semi-automatic camera system. And pay attention here, every sample photo you're about to see was taken using X-Mage Selfie, with AI helping throughout the entire process. Out of 5 stars, how would you rate these shots? Drop your score below. The more you use features like these, the easier photography becomes for everyday users. And some of you may have already noticed something interesting. This generation's X-Mage color style looks noticeably different from previous Huawei phones. Huawei has also added a new texture adjustment feature this time. It lets you fine-tune things like noise and vignetting, making it easy to recreate that classic CCD camera look and add more mood to your photos. But that's not the feature that surprised us most. The new 3D dynamic photo mode is seriously cool. Using it is simple. Take a dynamic photo, open it in the gallery, then tap the colorful character icon in the top right corner. Instantly, the system creates a stunning 3D effect. The result feels almost like a movie-style bullet time shot. The rest of the camera system also gets a boost from Huawei's second-generation red-coded primary color technology. Even in tricky lighting with huge exposure differences, colors stay natural and consistent. We also tested the telephoto macro camera. At around 10 centimeters away, it captured tiny dandelion details with impressive clarity. So how many stars out of 5 would you give the X Max camera system? Personally, these AI photography tools are some of my favorite features on the phone. Now let's talk performance. We ran 3 demanding gaming tests, including early game development and intense 10-player team fights designed to simulate long competitive sessions. Right now, the device supports HD graphics at up to 120 FPS. After testing both the inner and outer screens, performance was rock solid. Frame rates stayed above 119 FPS almost the entire time, while the 1% low still reached 100 FPS. The larger inner display consumed slightly more power, but temperatures remained under control. The highest reading we recorded was just 43 degrees Celsius, which is excellent for a foldable. We also noticed that Huawei has finally redesigned the Game Assistant interface. Previously, you had to long press the small white bar to access gaming tools. Now, you simply swipe down from the top, bringing back the more familiar operation style from earlier generations. The updated design also looks much more in line with Huawei's gaming-focused identity. As for battery life in other games, our pre-launch testing window was limited. We'll cover long-term battery performance in a future follow-up. Now let's move to the display. The outer screen is a 5.4-inch 1848 by 1264 panel protected by second-generation Kunlun glass. Inside, you get a 7.7-inch 2584 by 1828 flexible display. Brightness is another highlight. The outer display reaches 605 nits manually and peaks at 1478 nits under strong light boost mode. The inner display uses 9-point brightness testing. On our unit, the left side averaged around 670 nits. Once high brightness mode activated, the right side became slightly brighter, averaging about 1595 nits. For a large OLED foldable, these are very solid results. For eye comfort, the phone uses DC-like dimming at medium and high brightness levels. Below 85 nits, it automatically switches to 1440 Hz high-frequency PWM dimming. Enable the special dimming mode with flicker reduction, and that switching point drops from 85 nits to 45 nits. Above 45 nits, you get DC-like dimming. Below that, high-frequency PWM takes over. There's another nice touch. Place the outer screen horizontally while charging, and it can enter a standby style display mode. You can customize it with clocks, weather, pets, music controls, and other widgets. As for the remaining specs, here's the quick version. A 5300 mAh battery, 66-watt wired charging, 50-watt wireless charging, plus IP58 and IP59 protection ratings. The biggest difference between the standard and premium models comes down to memory and satellite communication. The standard version offers up to 12 GB RAM and 512 GB storage. The premium version goes all the way to 16 GB RAM and 1 TB storage. And that brings us to the end of our Huawei Pura X Max review. If you had to score this phone out of 5 stars, what would your rating be? Let us know in the comments. The Huawei Pura X Max starts at 10,999 yuan in China, roughly 1,193 pounds in the UK, or about $1,613 in the US. Huawei continues doing what it does best, bringing fresh ideas to the market. They managed to launch this wide folding design before both Apple and Samsung, once again showing just how strong Chinese brands have become in the foldable space. And perhaps even more importantly, Huawei's ecosystem now feels incredibly mature. Which leads to one final question. What surprise will Huawei bring us next? If you enjoyed this review or found it helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!